So one of the last projects here on the budget build is to paint up towards the gunnels. That's the high visibility area. That's where we want it to look really decent. Again, this isn't a show boat. It's not something we're going to be selling for thousands of dollars. We certainly weren't going to put 40 hours worth of body work into it. That's what this boat would have really needed if you were going to take it to the next level. But it's a good boat. It's just not that type of quality boat. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll and tip this. And that was solely based upon some emails I got after refinishing that table by the roll and tip method with the varnish. I got a few more questions asking, well, how do I do that to a hull side with some topside paint? So we're going to go ahead and do that. I've got some SeaFoam green here, kind of going with the classic look on this boat. SeaFoam green, and then I actually, instead of going flat white, I went semi-gloss white. And it's looking really good below the gunnel there. So we're going to go ahead and mix up the SeaFoam green. We're going to maybe use a half a quart after 2 coats. It is not going to take a lot of paint. This paint goes very far. So I'm going to pour that into the mixing cup through a strainer. I just like to strain any high gloss finish just to make sure you eliminate as much little contaminants as possible right off the bat. Then I'm going to add about 10% brushing thinner just to help with the flow out and self-leveling characteristics. And that's really about it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to solvent wipe the boat one last time and then tape off where we don't want paint to get onto, and then we're going to get into it. Next part of the process is a solvent wipe. So I'm using 120 brushing thinner. I didn't want to use a prep solvent. Prep solvent tends to be very aggressive on a single component product. So I went with the 120 brushing thinner, much less aggressive. So I wiped on some solvent. Then I came back and wiped it off with a dry rag. I then went on to tape off the boat. I didn't have to go too crazy with tape here, just underneath this little lip here. Very simple, very straightforward. I didn't even paint up to the tape. I simply just was going to round the corner with the paint. No need to go too crazy, getting a hard edge here. It's someplace that you'd never see unless you're underneath the boat. All right, so we're going to get the paint ready. So I just cracked open the top, dropped the paint stick in, just making sure there's nothing on the bottom, making sure it's all well incorporated, which it is. There's nothing at the bottom. Just making sure we're all good. Feels good, looks good. Put our paint stick in there. I'm going to put about 10 ounces of product in there. I think that'll do a good first coat. If not, we'll be close, especially since I'm going to be adding 10% thinner to it. So that's working its way through the strainer. I might end up actually going less than 10 ounces. That seems like it's probably going to be enough paint, especially after I reduce it. Go ahead, I'm going to scrape off the back. Try to keep the bench and everything as clean as possible. Throw the lid back on. Okay, that's 7 ounces. We'll start with that. I don't want to be in a position where if I have too much, I'm either going to waste, or I certainly don't want to pour it back into the quart, especially if I'm going to reduce it. So let's go ahead and add about 10% reducer. That's the 120 brushing thinner. So, 10% on 7 ounces, not going to be a whole lot, but just enough. Okay, there we go. Take our paint stick, We're going to want to wipe this off now, just in case there's any contamination on the paint stick. Use a clean, lint-free rag. Just want to clean that off. Make sure there's no lint or anything on it. Good. Come through here. And now we just want to mix this together. We're just trying to get the 120 brushing thinner mixed in. Now, this is a polyurethane, so you do not want to be applying this very thick. In fact, the first coat shouldn't really look that great. If it looks great, you're putting on too much product. Polyurethanes are very durable. They hold up really well. You know, five-year coating with routine maintenance. Just mixing that in. It looks like it's all well incorporated. You should be wearing PPE when you're mixing this. It is solvent based. I'm not, just for the sake of the demonstration so you can hear me. Okay, that looks like it's well mixed. And I'm going to reposition the camera so you can see what I'm doing. We're just going to be using the foam roller, foam brush, and that's it. Okay, here we go. And here's the part we've all been waiting for. Rolling on the topside paint. This is what's really going to bring this build to life. The SeaFoam green is such a classic, well-known color in our industry. It's a beautiful color. It goes on extremely well, has great hide to it. And let's talk about the process. So whenever I'm rolling and tipping, I like to roll left to right, and then I'll tip up and down. And that's regardless of any size project. It could be a small project like this. It could be the whole side of a 40-foot carver or something like that. Regardless of the situation, I like to roll it left to right and then tip it up and down. I just find if you tend to over apply, or someone who hasn't done it before, by tipping up and down, you do a really great job pulling that excess paint down. So instead of having a big long sag that goes left to right, you might have a run, but it'll be very small compared to a large sag. The run will also be much easier to repair. This being a single component product, the repair process is very simple. Quick little scuff sand, and then come in and touch up that area. So you're going to see me go around this boat twice. Two coats is more than enough. This EZ Poxy has really great coverage, really great hide, and it is extremely forgiving. This product can make any amateur look like a professional. It's very nice to work with. And again, you're just going to see me go around the boat here twice. The entire process is, again, rolling it left to right with a foam hot dog roller, and then tipping it up and down with a foam brush. That foam brush you're going to want to throw out typically after you're done with one side. It'll start to have the solvent eat into a little bit. Not that it will start shedding, but it'll start to lose its structure, and then it doesn't really do a great job pulling the excess paint down. It tends not to do a whole lot for you at that point. So I got halfway through this boat, and then I swapped out the paintbrush. What you might be picking up on at this point as well is you will see me go back and touch up areas. This has a great wide open time, probably a half hour, 45 minutes this is 70, 72 degrees in my shop here. So you could go back, and if you start seeing a run or something like that, you could just come back and pull that out very quick and easy with the foam brush. Again, extremely forgiving. This one's a little bit of an odd situation. That toe rail has a bit of an overhang, and what's happening is as the roller is applying some paint there, it's having a little bit of product go up around that area, and then what's happening is a minute or so later, there's a little bit of excess paint that's coming down. So what's really nice is after a minute or so, that paint has worked its way down, and then you can just pull it out with the brush. Due to me speeding up the time here, it's very difficult for you to see how quick I'm moving, but I'm really not moving that fast. This isn't really a process you need to rush. So let's talk about the process and why you roll and tip. When you're using a hot dog roller or foam roller or something like that, you're actually introducing air bubbles into the coating. So what you're doing by rolling the product on is you're putting a nice consistent coating, usually a mil, maybe 2 mils thick. And then what you're doing is you're coming back with that foam brush and you're not adding any more product. What you're doing is you're wetting the brush just enough that it slides on top of the coating you rolled on. So you're not adding any more product to the surface. Again, all you're doing is you're taking out any little air bubbles or imperfections that you might have rolled onto the surface. You'll see me just go around this boat here. I'll do 2.5 feet at a time with the roller left and right, and then I'll come back and I'll tip it off. This leaves 0 brush marks, 0 roller marks, no runs, no debris. It's just a very simple, very easy process that anyone can do. And that'll do it for this one. Pretty simple process. Roll it left to right, tip it up and down. Just keep an eye on any runs. Come back, you could touch it up. Again, it'll stay open for you for a little while. Very simple, very easy application. And you might be asking, why roll and tip the topside paint when I sprayed the primer? As I mentioned earlier in the video, I was getting some emails on the request to show how to roll and tip topside paint. So that's one reason. But the other reason is this process has been getting done for decades. And for those folks that don't have access to spray guns, spray equipment, air compressors, you're in a boatyard that has other vessels close by or cars close by, things like that. Spraying can be a bit dangerous in terms of just overspraying, things like that. So the roll and tip method, it looks very similar to a sprayed finish, if not just as good. If you're in an area where spraying is an issue, this is a perfectly acceptable application. It's super easy, and all you need is a little patience.